Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. No one looks forward to the end of life, whether it's your own or that of a loved one. It's fraught with all sorts of complications associated with dying. We're talking about that in this segment. The Visiting Nurse Association of Greater St. Louis provides many services, including hospice care. It'll be part of a panel discussion tomorrow night on end-of-life issues. With me in studio to talk about these issues are Carol Emmerich, Director of Hospice Care for the Visiting Nurse Association of Greater St. Louis. Mike Roberts, whom you remember as longtime Channel 5 meteorologist, is the Manager of Public Relations and Communications for the association. Nice to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carol and
Thank
Mike,
you, Don. Good afternoon.
Mike, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Carol, let me begin with you. The title of your event tomorrow night is called Soul Injury. I'm not sure many people understand what that means.
Well, Don, in hospice care, we have really learned how to take care of people at the end of life when they have pain and symptoms. We got a lot of medications for that, but we don't have anything that really heals the soul. And many times when people get to the end of life, they start thinking about what's gone on in their life. Have they lived a life that's meaningful? And war veterans, people who have been abused, people who have had trauma and even insidious trauma over their whole life really need to have time to heal.
This whole thing got started. The soul injury concept got started with veterans, didn't it?
That's correct.
All right. And, isn't it a little late at the end of life to repair some of these damages?
Well, this is our message from Visiting Nurse Association to the community is let's work on it now, not wait until the end of the life. And so we're talking to people about how to recognize soul injury and what to do about soul injury and how to get help, particularly the veterans who can seek help through the Veterans Administration. They've done a lot of work on this. They call this moral injury in their field. But that's what we want to get the message out.
But the application goes far beyond veterans, needless to say.
Unfortunately, it does.
Yeah.
We all have things in our life that put a deep wound that takes a long time to heal.
Mike, when you came into the room and we chatted for just a second before going on the air, I said, this is a tough subject to talk about, the end of life. And you took exception to that right away.
Well, not violently or it doesn't upset me, Don, but I have to say that hospice gets ingested in a way that I wish it didn't, because there is an opportunity for great beauty. I was a hospice volunteer for a long time, and my late wife, Ann, got cancer. We took care of her on hospice. And, that prayer didn't get answered. Probably it won't for most people who go into hospice. But you have an opportunity in hospice that you don't get if death comes suddenly. You have a chance to say goodbye. Every relationship has this flaw in it. It's made entirely of humans. And because humans aren't perfect, no relationship is perfect. And you have a chance during these hospice years. And at the Visiting Nurse Association, we provide the clinical end of this at such a high level, but you yourself are now freed to say, gosh, I wish I'd have been a better husband. I wish I'd have been a better father. And to really walk this person through these last few steps of life. And just as a soul injury component to this part of the discussion is this. We did a panel discussion at UMSL back in November, and at the end, most of the people in the audience, if not all of them, were in one form or another associated with hospice. But this woman raises her hand and she says, I just don't really belong here. My loss is that I was divorced after 27 years. And I said, you absolutely need to be here. This is something that you will carry with you at the end of your life. It is a big loss, and you need to grieve that loss.
So how do you walk this person through that process in this particular case that Mike just advanced?
Mostly done is just giving people a safe environment where they can share and they can talk and they can confess this. And so when you get the hospice staff there and they get a relationship with the person, the walls kind of come down.
That is so true. You know, as a hospice volunteer, one of the things that shocked me most was how much a person would tell me. But, you know, I came to understand, well, I'm safe. I wasn't in a relationship with this person for 3 decades or 4 decades. And when I leave, everything they tell me goes with me. And in a soul injury journey, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see if this person has anything, A, that they want to talk about, and B, that they're open to talking about. And then through that inquiry, to gently ask them if it's something that they feel safe talking about, that's going to be in an exclusive conversation that will go no further, and if they want to literally get it off their soul or chest.
Is there a special training that's necessary for someone like yourself as a volunteer and being a party to these conversations?
There is. That's what the discussion and the panel discussion is going to be about, Don. It's going to be, you will begin the process of understanding, A, how to approach the topic in the first place, and then B, what sorts of landmines there might be that you could step on, and then C, how does this person do this? And we reach a point in the evening where we are asking folks to literally ask the person they're talking to, their hospice patient, to embrace themselves, you know, to ease the pain by just embracing themselves.
It would seem to me that certainly the training would be necessary for conversations like this. But one of the things that would come up would be unaddressed issues. Let's say estrangements from loved ones, things that had not been said that folks wish had been said. It takes two to tango. Don't you have to have that other party there to make this happen?
Well, you do. And this is the myth. This is the myth that we all live with, is that we're going to wrap our life up in a nice tiny bow. And it doesn't happen. People get to the end of their life. They're stressed. They're ill. They're tired. People's emotions are very high. It's a very difficult time. And so, no, we don't always get to the goal that we want to get to.
Is that your responsibility? Would it be your responsibility of a person who is dying saying, I want to get together with my daughter whom I haven't seen in 35 years? Do you have a responsibility to try to find that daughter and bring her into the room?
We would move heaven and earth to make that happen if that's what the patient wanted. And I think that is the beauty of hospice, is that while it can seem like a morbid, sad profession to be in, it's really a joyous time for people. And we really want to help people to live their life as fully as possible all the way to the end. So we will take people to the casino. We'll take them to the bar to meet with their buddies. You want to go golfing? Once you're in hospice, you're free to do all of that, and we do try to make that happen. And we have a whole team of people doing this. When we talk about experience and what it takes to help somebody through that, we have social workers, we have chaplains, we have volunteers, nurses, physicians. It takes a bunch of people. So
many times, the person who you're trying to let go of something has just never felt comfortable talking about it. I saw a story about these two young guys who started a film project. They put a booth up at a mall in Atlanta, and they asked you to go in and tell your life story, and then they would animate that. And one of the people who came in right away was this World War II veteran who'd been in the Battle of the Bulge. And he said, I was 22 years old. I was on the perimeter. It was a clear night. I heard something in the snow. I looked up. It's this German coming toward me. I told him to halt twice. He didn't. I killed him. And when I went out there to look at him in the moonlight, he couldn't have been 17. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was the most handsome young man I've ever seen. And, I slept well that night, but for the rest of my life, he's been in my dreams. He had never talked about that before. Now, part of it is he didn't talk to people because he didn't want to burden them. But part of it, Don, he'd never been asked. Mm-hmm.
Well, this is someone you spoke to.
This was part of a film project that a story that I saw.
How do you know what to ask? I mean, who would dredge something like that up with a stranger?
Well,
you have no idea.
You have to ask this question: is there anything that you would like to talk about? Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's really okay to say these are going to be your last days. Is there anything that causes you distress that you'd like to talk about?
That's another thing, Carol, that I wonder about being in a hospice situation and being told more than once, I'm sure, these are your last days. I would think that would be something you'd want to avoid saying.
People want to know. They do. We're
if
a
they're
society.
there, don't they know?
They do know.
Yeah.
And even, more often we get somebody who says, don't tell Dad he's dying. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as we're in the room with Dad, he tells us he's dying. And so people are trying to keep another person from being hurt. So let's keep it all a secret. But they feel so much better when they know that they don't have to walk this journey alone. And we don't have to pretend like this isn't happening. And once we get it out in the air, it's done.
If you would, I think a lot of people might have been surprised when you talk about taking Dad to the casino or going to see his buddies at the local bar, that they don't really understand what hospice care is. I think a lot of folks probably picture it as someone on the verge of death in a bed just waiting for the Grim Reaper. Explain what that room is like and what the environment is like typically.
Really, hospice care is a benefit that's a Medicare benefit that is for 6 months to the end of life. We get people that stay in hospice sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years. I had a person who was 102 and stayed in hospice till they were 105. So as long as you're terminally ill, you get to be in the program. Hopefully we get people sooner than later. I know people say, oh, my mother went into hospice and she was dead within 2 days. Hospice must have done that. But the fact of it is doctors wait too late to refer to us. So the earlier we get people, the more we can start working on what we need to do to help somebody wrap up their life. So our hospice nurses visit a couple times a week. The aides come a couple times a week. Again, I said chaplains and social workers. And our people don't have to be homebound. They can go to the lake. They can go on vacation. Many do. We're helping them, as I said, live life to the end with dignity, with all of the things that they want to do, and we just help them along with that. We get all their pain and symptom out of control. They no longer have to go to the doctor, the hospital, sit in waiting rooms, and they're so happy to finally be able to take over the steering wheel again.
Mike, if you don't mind talking about it, tell me about your experience in that. It's very personal, I know, and if you don't want to, I understand.
No,
but
I don't mind at all. Ann and I were married for 34 years. We were both on a really deep spiritual journey. I had been a volunteer as a hospice volunteer for a long time before Ann caught cancer like people catch a cold. Mm. And when I was in training, Don, Linda Zavelli at Unity Hospice told us all, sometimes our volunteers end up taking care of their own family members. And I was a young man of 48, and I thought, that's never going to happen to me. But then Ann was diagnosed with cancer in 2012 on my birthday, and a year and a month later, she had passed away. But she didn't go into hospice until January of 2013. Once we went into hospice, because we had that time, she had so many friends, Don, that came by the house every day, at least a couple, sometimes a dozen. We had 6 or 7 masses set at the house. Our daughter, who lives in Kansas City, was able to come home every single weekend. And, you talk about the opportunities that come and that are beautiful in a hospice journey. This made me see my daughter not like she was 3 with a bow in her hair, but like the woman she had become, whom I needed as providing input from a woman to care for her mother. It was just beautiful, Don. And because I am a person of faith, I thought, I signed on for this. This is my chance to serve Ann for the rest of her life and walk her the last 10 steps to Jesus, and that is exactly how we did it.
Is hospice care always provided in the home? It's not, is it?
In nursing home, it's wherever the person lives.
No, I mean their own home.
Yes, in their own home.
Again, I think there's an impression that I had that a hospice was a place outside the home that people went, kind of like a hospital ward or what have you.
Yeah, you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
Most people think that it's a place that you go. People are quite shocked when they find out that somebody has a terminal illness, that they're going to be the nurse for their loved one. And so we spend a whole lot of time teaching people how to do the nursing things. And unfortunately, our children don't even live in the same state with us. So, we have to bring people together. We have to set up schedules. We may have to get private duty services for people. People are just so surprised that the government or whoever they think is their insurance is just going to send somebody to take care of somebody until the day they die.
I should have asked this a moment ago when we were talking about it. You say the insurance covers for 6 months. What happens if a person, that 102-year-old, does live to be 105?
Well, we keep them. We actually, though, do have graduates of hospice. I know that's hard to believe, but I have 2 of them a year that graduate from hospice. Sometimes they get on. We get them all happy, taken care of, pain-free, and they don't seem so terminal. So they come off until they're ready to come back on again.
There was a famous case of that. Art Buchwald, the newspaper columnist, was in hospice for a good long while, so the full 6 months. Finally got up and left and lived for a couple of years and wrote about it, in his typical fashion. As time winds down, there's one issue here that I think we should put on the table, and that is the growing movement today for assisted suicide under these conditions. I mean, there are a lot of people talking about that in a lot of states which are writing laws to this regard. What's your take on that, Carol?
I think that people like to have that choice, but even in the states that have assisted suicide, not very many people take that option when they actually can. But they like to have the option. It's very hard for us to lose our bodies, our image. We're very vain, and people just don't understand what's going to happen to me at the end of life. Once they get that information, and we've talked to them about it, and we've walked them through that fear kind of leaves. And when the fear is gone, people are more ready to face this. And I'm not a proponent of that, but I certainly understand where people want that.
Mike, I would have to think, given your faith, you would not be a proponent of it.
Oh, I absolutely would not. And I think that's where we have to just be patient. There's a precursor to hospice, which is palliative care, and that is when you're not conceding any battles, but you're also not going to radiation 5 days a week for a month. And palliative care is a good place to analyze, when to go into hospice and whether. But hospice, like I say, Don, it can be a beautiful journey. We have this event coming up on Thursday evening, and I think people can find out a lot more about it.
I'll just let folks know that's between 7 and 8:30 tomorrow evening at the St. Louis County Library Grants View branch. Carol, what specific? You mentioned some of the things happening at the event tomorrow. What else is going to be taking place in terms of the panel discussion and subject matter for people to talk about?
It is specifically on soul injury. We do, it's a video. We do stop the video a couple times during the night to answer questions. We spend time afterwards. People have a lot of things that they want to talk with us about. Mike and I will be available, and we got cookies for people.
I'll moderate it and introduce the topic, explain soul injury briefly, introduce the panelists, then we'll watch a video. Then we'll have a discussion, and we'll do that 3 times. Well,
it's something people should be talking about and planning for. I'm thinking about directives and that sort of thing. That's a whole other part of the discussion. Carol Emmerich, thank you so much for being with us. Carol, of course, is the Director of Hospice Care for the Visiting Nurse Association of Greater St. Louis. Mike Roberts with us, also with that organization. Thank you, Mike. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much, Don.
Archived versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Don Marsh.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.